So there's money in tailgating.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but there's a gentleman by the name of Rob Fulmer who is like Jetman for real.
Yeah.
He works here at
What?
iHeart. Yes, he works on the 5th floor.
Jetman is up here?
Yes, and he has the ultimate tailgate.
Now-
Every Sunday or whenever the Jets play, he leads the tailgate, and then he's like the mascot for the New York Jets.
I know. I have to see who's in his crew. Because do we have some diversity up in there?
There is
we got a whole
lot of
Jets
diversity.
fans and Giants fans. And I like to say that New York is the melting pot of everything in this world. Shaq doesn't like the melting pot because the melting pot, when she gets on the train, you want to know, son, Kenya, we taking the train over here.
Greg
and she
likes
was
to
like,
embarrass me.
yeah,
Tell a
all
story.
day. We're taking the train over here. And she's like, I'm not going to sit next to you. And I was like, is it my breath? I have Altoids with me. And she was like, no, it looked like somebody pooped in that seat. And I was like,
Oh,
if
no.
you don't.
The seat was dirty. I didn't want to sit down.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't like-
ridiculousness, right? How you not going to take a L for your coworker?
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of with you on there.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Listen,
might stand and be like I'm standing right
you
next
better,
to you.
You better
Yeah.
sop it up and put it in the laundromat when you get home. Oh, my God.
Because no one wants to
Gross,
deal with all
right.
that. There's certain levels of feeling a sense of inclusion. That's not one of them.
Exactly.
I mean, it's how you connect with your fellow New Yorkers, right?
Mm-hmm. I guess.
They're like, no,
Well-
we're not doing this today.
Yeah. Speaking of connection, though, I mean, I know this platform that you've all built is about that and how to connect with people and cultivate in a more purposeful way. So let's talk about your podcast that's getting an award. We're speaking it into existence.
Yes.
No. We gonna get the award. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way I know how to do things is to make it happen, right, Shaq? When I kick your chair, because she sit right in the cubicle behind me.
Okay.
And then, she always be asking me for airheads and stuff. And I'd be like, all right, if I get to kick your chair. So I get to kick her chair.
So you get to kick her chair and then you get to come up with very clever content.
Yeah.
That's a good gig.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
it's what they concocted when they put us together. I don't think.
Yeah,
they
I'm the
knew what
more
they-
reserved one. And
Okay.
He's the
Yeah.
loud one.
Hashtag chamomile energy. Hashtag Java trip. We doing this today.
Got it. So take me through the journey of this podcast and this platform, because I think it's very interesting and it's a very heavy topic,
Yeah.
right? So to make it informative and entertaining is,
So you want me to set the scene for you? Kenya?
please set the scene.
So it was January, and I was like, I'm new to this job. Now, how do I utilize what I love so that I don't do something called quiet quitting? Because there are people at their job that they're crying on the inside. They're like, oh, but on the outside, they're like, yes, I'm going to get you this report. So I wanted to avoid that because I actually like where I work now. Not saying that I didn't like where I used to work, but I like where I work now and who I
Good.
work with. So I was like, how can I do something that I love? And I'm not shameless plugging, but I'm also a podcaster for veterans. I'm a U.S. Army combat veteran, just to let y'all know. Don't let this beautiful mane and this photo fool you. That's why I'm calling my hair the photo right now, because you got to take a photo
We make
of
fun of
it.
his hair in the office.
I think you
He
have
styles
good
it.
hair.
No.
He styles it in odd ways.
Thank you for supporting me.
I do.
How did my supervisor say you look like a Cabbage Patch Kid?
Oh,
and
that's
for real, I
nice.
did have the troll haircut. It's okay. I'm sparkle
He does
glitter.
different things with it. It's interesting.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
call it the photo because you got to take a photo of it, 40 times 2, which is
Okay.
80. Anyway,
But when you're in the military, you don't have many options. It's
no
just,
buzz cut.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but right now I'm on vacation. Hey.
Okay.
But so I was just like, let's do something different, because don't let this quiet demeanor fool you. Shaq is a savage. She is not for the faint of heart when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. She will tell you about yourself and some microaggressions too.
Mm-hmm.
So she came up with this whole robust racial equity toolkit. I was like, how am I going to do this? It's like when you get hired at a job and somebody sets the standard so high, you just like, this is ridiculous.
Do all companies have one of those, do you think?
They don't.
Yeah, why
Uh,
not?
Folks, I think, are afraid to talk about race and gender, those difficult issues. They also may not have the resources. I know all companies don't have DEI offices
Mm-hmm.
or diversity and inclusion officers. So it's not a thing. I think the racial equity, gender equity toolkits are becoming new. I think it started more after George Floyd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So no, It's something new.
What's in that kind of a toolkit? What does that look like?
Shaq, do you want to go down your whole entire 40-page document?
Greg loves putting me on spot.
Oh,
He loves
here's
putting
a
me
light.
on
I'm shining it, Shaq.
So what's in it? We give definitions about race. We talk about the different dimensions of racism, internal, interpersonal, and we talk about where systemic racism begins. We also give discussion points for having those difficult conversations in the workplace, so managers don't mess up and say the wrong thing, and employees are filing complaints against them. So we kind of give them guidance on that, and then we give other resources, books to read about race. So it's a pretty robust toolkit. Employees, they love it, and they've said they've learned a lot from it.
Now, Shaq, you got to tout the numbers. Hold on, Kenya.
Go ahead.
She ain't telling you the whole story. First of all, New York City Department of Social Services, Human Resources Administration, Department of Homeless Services. If you work for us, I'm going to say, hey. But we got about 16,000 employees.
Wow.
For HRA and Department of Social Services, we have a $9.2 billion budget and 14,000 employees spread across 12 public assistance programs. On the Department of Homeless Services side, we got a $2.3 billion budget, and we're taking care of everybody that is at risk and in these communities. So put that in your membrane. You got 16,000 employees, from caseworkers to JOS workers, people in the SNAP centers, people over here trying to do cash assistance. These folk are literally saving lives every day. They service about 3 million New Yorkers a year.
Wow.
So you have one person, and then they brought me on board. So I'm like, oh, we gonna break everything out. So she come with this robust toolkit. I'm like, oh, we gonna step it up a notch. Let's do a podcast. And then she looked at me. She was like, I don't want to hear myself.
I'm not a media person.
Well, you know what? But you're an educator,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which makes you influential in spaces like this, you know, and I love what
appreciate
you're
that.
doing with the podcast, because that's a training tool.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this about me. So I host a podcast here on the Black maternal health crisis called Maternal.
I saw your interview with Angie Martinez talking about how her stomach felt like a Charlie horse with Remy Ma. I watched you.
Oh, the contraction, conversation. Yeah, yeah. So interestingly enough, same type of situation, right? Like we're trying to train people in a entertaining type of way on like information and resources that are available there. But it's interesting that people still don't think that systematic racism exists until they get into the healthcare system, or they need assistance with food, or they're like, it's crazy to me that this is still happening in 2023. So you have quite the undertaking in terms of your job.
Well, I mean, Shaq has no choice, because when I come up with a bright idea, it seems like I know how to sell it. I used to sell Kirby vacuum cleaners back in the day, so I make you buy.
Oh, wow.
If I made you buy a $1,400 vacuum cleaner,
That's
I
a hard sell.
apologize. It was, but I put some vacuum cleaners in some houses. But I done turned my life over to the city now. But Shaq has no idea. I sold it to our supervisor. They're just like, oh, I got to give a shout out, Kenya. Can I do a back in the day shout out?
Sure.
Shout out Commissioner Molly Park, Commissioner, of New York City Department of Social Services. Also shout out to our Chief of Staff, Karen St. Hilaire. Hey, we
Yes.
made it,
Hi,
you.
Karen.
And then, of course, Athena McBean, our lovely
Yes.
Commissioner of EEO and DEI. And that is the way organizations and agencies need to do it, Kenya. You cannot separate diversity and EEO. You have to kind of put it together.
For
Because
sure.
you need some sort of way to mitigate folks acting crazy
Yeah.
so that you don't get that EO complaint.
Right.
And that's what we're here for.
And it
you
has
know?
to come from the top.
Mm-hmm.
We're lucky enough to have leadership that supports us in the work we're doing. So, we get to create this awesome programming. We get to do a podcast. We get to create workshops around microaggression and tone police and an unconscious bias so that folks can learn.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say, do you think that the podcast is a tool to create like opportunities around implicit bias training?
Yeah, it's definitely a tool. Some of the stuff we talk about different biases on the podcast. We've had some media personabilities come on and talk about
Charlamagne,
how
Angela Rye,
they've navigated
Laura
through these
Coates.
spaces, and they've talked about social justice too. We just had a great episode about social justice with the folks that Greg just mentioned. So it is a great platform to kind of encourage learning about unconscious bias and microaggressions and all of these other DEI issues.
And get people to open up.
And then Shaq gets to talk about her marathoning because I know y'all both marathoning. That's
We
all she
are.
be talking
Yes,
about.
we are.
Oh, I just do ruck marches, Greg. You can't do a marathon.
I challenged Greg. I think he's afraid. I don't believe he's
You see
good
this
at
shirt I'm wearing?
athletics.
Does it look like I'm afraid, Shaq?
He's like a risk taker. I get risk taker vibes from him for sure.
I don't
But
know.
but running a marathon is a mindset, and I think
Yeah.
if you can, everyone should try to do it at least once, even if it's a half, because it's good for your brain.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's motivating,
Mhm.
and it also helps you. I think running helps you clear your mind.
Definitely.
It's therapeutic. It's my therapy for
Mhm.
when Greg drives me crazy at work. I'll do a run afterward to
Got
clear
it.
my mind and come to work new the next
So it's
day.
therapy from Greg.
Yes,
Got it.
exactly.
Everybody needs a therapy from Greg toolkit because you might have that coworker that will compliment you. And that's what I like to say. We compliment one another. And when you're doing work in the diversity space,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't just put out stuff for yourself.
Sure.
That was one of the things that I really wanted to come into, producing this podcast with Shaq. That was from her perspective, it was about teaching and information, throwing out stats, throwing
Mhm.
out data points, giving you the hard stuff. For me, it's like we have to meet people where they are.
That's right.
Because just because you from, and I hate this, Kenya, they be like, oh, you from New York. Yeah, but there are different parts to New York. I'm from Harlem.
Yeah.
Shaq, where you split your time in between. I love this, Kenya. Watch. Who you repping?
I'm originally from Queens.
Okay.
I moved to the Poconos.
The Poconos.
But
when I
who
was
you repping?
13. Queens.
All day. If you were to say Poconos, I was going to be like, girl.
No.
I mean, shout out to the Poconos. No shade to the Poconos, but I don't
see stuff like that. But people that live in different boroughs
Yeah.
have different experiences. So when you're talking about it from a race standpoint, you're talking about it from a demographical standpoint, age, Gen Xer, baby boomer. And right now we are in such a unique spot. Even at our own agency, it's so diverse, so many different generations, so many different ethnicities. It's so like you can't come out with something that it's a one shoe fits everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
It's because it can't. And I was going to ask you, like, how do you feel like music and media and culture play into everything that you...
So I'm going to date myself right now. Don't let these curls fool you. I used to intern over at Rockefeller Records. Back in the day, I was a street teamer. I don't know why the cop gave me a $300 ticket for putting up a poster, but I guess that's what like influenced me after that I wanted to be in the music game. After that, worked at BET, worked at MTV, switched over to Fox News. No, I'm not Republican. I just had to do it for a check. And then I left working for Fox News to actually work for the city. So I worked for the New York City Department of Veteran Services. And then I was just like, I need to do something more. I need to do something more impactful. You know, it's great servicing veterans, but I want more. And then Shaq sat in on my interview and she said, who is this? And this is the way I replay it in my head. This is not
It's
how
not real.
Yeah, I was like, how you doing? You about to get linked up with me. What's up? Let's get this work. That's how it happened, Shaq, right?
No.
How'd it happen, Shaq?
It just happened. He just got lucky.
Okay.
He got lucky to work with me and our boss, Athena McBean.
Well, when you say it like that, talk your talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way media, culture, diversity influences the work we're doing is that, we talk about the stuff that goes on in media all the time at work. And, it kind of influences workplace culture. Media influences the way we think. It influences the biases that come up in our mind. And, that spills out into the workplace. And when it comes to diversity, what we do is give folks the tools to be able to navigate through these different conversations. So I think that's how it influences. And when it comes to music can be political. It can be therapeutic. There are so many diverse aspects of music. So we see that in work all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I had a question for you, Kenya. I'm
Sure.
gonna flip this around.
Okay, let's go.
Flip it. So I like Pew Research. I like McKinsey. I like Deloitte. I like all these companies with these numbers because at the end of the day, you need some stats. So a majority of employed U.S. adults, 56%, focusing on increasing DEI is a good thing to them, 56%. Do you really feel that DEI is actually making a difference in today's workforce?
Honestly, yes, right? I think it's helping us have the conversation that we weren't having before. However, as a Black biracial woman, right, I am still sometimes not always having the best experience, right? And I think it just comes down to people not understanding on how to create better cultural experiences, or not knowing how to relate in certain situations, or not operating from a certain sense of empathy and understanding like what our experiences are and like what that needs to look like in terms of it working better in our best interest. So I definitely still feel like, truth be told, in media, there's still that threshold that has not been met based on, skin color. Do I think it's intentional all the time? No, I think it comes from a misunderstanding and not knowing how to address certain things, and it being so uncomfortable and weird that people then don't take the time to get the resources like you're offering to either alter their mindset or figure out a way to better deal with the situation. So they avoid it, and then that makes it stagnant in terms of the numbers that you just read off.
Now, and I'm gonna let Shaq do her thing because she's gonna come hard. I like to set the plane. Shaq just likes to take off. As far as talking about creating equity, in your own past experiences, even up until now, do you see progress for today's women? I mean, I'm a gender equity initiative, and that's one of my first questions. Do you see progress? And if you haven't, where are we failing as a society, as a people?
I've seen a little progress. I think I've seen a little progress only because I feel sometimes like there's a box to be checked. And maybe that's the reason for the progress. And listen, progress is progress. And if I have to be the box checker, I'll take that. But I think in order to get to a certain place where there's true change, it's got to go beyond the box checking. It has to go like to getting an understanding of like what this person really needs on a personalized level, right? And I don't know that organizations necessarily always have the bandwidth to get down so personal, but I love what your agency is doing where you have the toolkit. You're creating opportunities for organizations to follow and mimic. And if those things are implemented and resources are put towards that, it could change the scope or the bandwidth to like at least get to a place where we can make some sort of progressive change beyond the box checking.
I like that. I know you do some community work and you have Power Move. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Yeah. So Power Move was birthed out of a show that we actually record here called Passage to Profit. It's the Road to Entrepreneurship. It's a show that I co-host with 2 intellectual property and trademark attorneys that have a practice in New Jersey. And the goal for the show was always to educate on trademark and intellectual property law and helping people protect their ideas. Where Power Move was birthed from is that I wanted to create diversity within the show and more representation of people that look like us in the multicultural space and give us an opportunity to get in front of people who don't look like us to pitch our ideas and innovations. Because one of the things that I feel like the Jay-Z's and the Nas's, no shade to anybody, of the world don't necessarily tell us is like how they got Warren Buffett to finance their vision or their dream or their idea. And that's one of the things that I want to create for us as a culture is generational wealth comes from other people sowing resources into our community and that we use that to recirculate that back into the community, right? But that only happens when we have the opportunity to get our ideas and our innovations in front of people who don't necessarily look like us. And I think that there's money to be made for everybody. So it's not, for me, it's not a black or white thing. If something's a good idea, then it's a good idea and you want to have the opportunity to tell your story. So that's where Passage to Profit came from, and then that's where Power Move was birthed from. And I wanted to make sure that I gave more of an opportunity. So it lives inside of the show, which is nationally syndicated, but I wanted to create a storytelling platform where I could tell those stories more in long form. So yeah, that's what we're doing with that.
Wow, sounds like you're doing really awesome work around community work and creating equity for folks. Can you tell me a little bit more about your personal story, your career path, and what encouraged this?
Yeah, so I was a 17-year-old mother, right? And on Snap and Wick, and wanted to work in radio since I was 5. And that was all I really ever wanted to do. And kept that dream in my heart, even going through the trials and tribulations of being a young mother, living in public housing, just trusting that God was going to bring an opportunity for me, which he did through the form of public affairs programming and managing the FCC file, which most people don't even know what that is. But it was a job that I took that paid $9 an hour, and it got me in the door to radio. And the rest is history. I started in a small market in Poughkeepsie, managing the public file, producing public affairs programming, doing weekends on Light FM, and then doing afternoon drive on Kiss 96.1. Lost my on-air shift due to a recession. I was replaced with syndicated programming, which made a light bulb go off for me. I was like, this can't happen because I have bills to pay, and this is my dream, right? And so it kind of stopped my dream a little bit, and it allowed me to kind of think a little bit more strategically about where I was in the business. And it pushed me into the sales and marketing side because I wanted to stay in the game, which actually ended up working out for me. Because I went into the business side, it was able to open me up to a larger market, which was New York City, which is where I always wanted to work. So what I thought was a setback, God actually used that to set me up to break into New York. And that's how I got here. I got a opportunity. I don't know if you remember Star and Buck Wild.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Troy.
remember.
Can I give a shout out to Troy?
Let's shout out to Troy, yes.
Listen, because this is my connection to music. Was actually after Rockefeller, then I did Universal, then I did Motown Street Teaming. I actually got hooked into Power 105, and I remember Troy was like, yeah, I want you on my street team. And I was like, okay. And he was like, yeah, I'm doing this looking for the new Buck Wild contest. And I was like, should I stand downstairs by McDonald's? Because I think I could be the new. But apparently I was too tall.
Well, can I tell you about that experience? So I'm not going to tell you my age. I'll tell you the year. It was 2001. It was when Miss Jones left, and they were looking for a morning show co-host. And I stood outside on a New York City block for at least 3 hours in the morning. I got picked out of, I don't even know how many people were standing outside. I got brought back for 3 auditions, and on my last audition, I choked.
What?
I remember it. I was sitting up at Hot 97. Biggie had just passed, like maybe 2 years prior, and Valletta Wallace, his mother, was up there that day. And there was just a lot going on in the atmosphere. And I had been up to the station probably since like 5 a.m, show prepping, getting like all my stories and stuff together. And a lot of the co-hosts they were putting on were like having a tough time that morning. And Star was like on one and was like, no one's coming in here unless they can read properly, right? So I'm like, I'm good. I've been doing this a while. Got up there, sat in front of Miguel, who was the producer at the time, and was just tripping over my words. And it was so weird. And I totally fumbled the ball and never got a chance to pursue that opportunity, and was frustrated because the first 2 auditions with Star were great. And then the third one, not so much. But fast forward, Star's doing his own thing on YouTube, like probably like 10 years ago. He was like in the YouTube game before anybody was in the YouTube game. I sent him an email, was like, I don't know if you remember me. I auditioned for you. I knew he wouldn't probably talk to me unless I sent a donation to his show. So I took the last $100 I had, sent a donation to his show. He emailed me back and was like, we could Skype. I'll give you some advice, because I wanted to see what I needed to do to move. Long story short, we ended up doing a Skype meeting. He said, I'm going to connect you with Ron DeCastro here at CBS in New York. I had an interview that Thursday, got the job 2 weeks later, turned the job down because I was afraid and my kids were little, and I was like, didn't know if this was the right move. Long story short, I prayed about it. I was like, God, if this is you, I need a sign. They gave me $20,000 more on top of what they had offered me, which showed me that I probably didn't ask for enough money. And it was the most money I ever had made in my life. So I was like, I'm going. And that's how I got to New York. And then I got here several years later through an email that came from one of the sales managers that kind of shook me up a little bit because I wasn't planning on making a shift and move, but I'm glad I did because now we're sitting here having a conversation. So that's kind of like the short version of how I got to New York and how I got to this point, but a story nonetheless.
And
That's an
there's
amazing
power
story.
in the story. Shaq,
Yeah.
when are you going to audition for something?
I'm
So I
not
can
going
just take
to
your
audition.
portfolio, and when I take your portfolio, I can have all of the toolkits.
Greg thinks he's always auditioning.
See?
So he takes
Well, you
the
are. We all are
spotlight.
for something.
I
You're selling
am. Listen,
something.
that's why we
Yeah.
got the Anthem Award.
See?
All right.
So tell me about the Anthem Award because that's
So
remarkable.
This is a big deal. So, I mean, Shaq, what have been some of your favorite shows? I'm going to tell them how I think we became a finalist, but what shows have we done that really you think have been hitting folks?
So, two. I hope the folks that our guests don't get upset because I didn't pick their show.
Oh, it's okay.
We're
But
going to get emails now.
the first one was the show about being your authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
where we had somebody on there talk about you can't really be your authentic self in the workplace because it's a space where you're constantly being judged.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes the workplace is not always inclusive, so you kind of got to code switch and not be yourself. So it was like, can you be your authentic self?
Mm-hmm.
So that was one. Another one was Divine. We had somebody on there. He's a media person,
Mm-hmm.
and he talked about his journey in media and how it was tough because he was the only person of color in those spaces, and how he was pushed to do DEI work because he was the only Black person in those spaces, and how draining it became. So those were my favorite episodes.
That's great.
The correct answer is all of them were my favorite.
Okay.
All
How many have you
seasons of them.
cut?
So we're on season 2 right now, episode 3. We just actually came from the United Justice Coalition with Charlemagne,
Nice.
Fat Joe, Angela Rye, Laura Coates, Michael Eric Dyson, my song. Like, so we have been evolving.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know, those episodes were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We have a little something for everybody.
Yeah.
We've got something on radical self-care. Do you know about sound baths?
No,
Coach Kenya, you don't know nothing about no sound baths?
I don't.
Get a sound bath.
Okay.
Okay. So they have sound baths where they hit you with the sounds and it's supposed to cleanse everything and put you in another state. I'm scared.
I was going to say that sounds scary.
Bathe me with some waves.
Okay.
Shout out Wasita Francois. She was our guest for that show. Then we have something on, yes, bringing your authentic self to work. Like Shaq said, code switch. You would be just, I never knew about code switching.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't
Let's break
know-
down the code switch.
Oh my gosh. And I didn't know it affected, you know, women of color like that, as well as tone policing. Shaq, that's you. Go ahead, talk your talk.
So code switching is when you switch up at work. You become your more professional, what is considered professional,
Okay.
what is considered in the workplace. That is one way it happens. It also happens with the way folks speak. If you speak a different language, you may mask that. So that's how you code switch. It can be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. It depends on the environment. And then tone policing, we talk about this a lot, and a lot of folks don't know what it is. It's when we're speaking passionately. We're passionate about what we're talking about, and the message isn't received. It's just basically, I don't like your attitude. I don't like the way you're speaking to me. So they don't receive the message. They
Kind of
don't
like, I'm not yelling.
Yeah.
got
So, it's just the message isn't received. So it happens a lot to women. It happens a lot to Black women, women of color, because, you know, I'm very soft spoken. So, you know, if I raise my voice, some person might be like, I don't like your attitude. And it's just, I don't have an attitude.
Right.
This is how I'm speaking.
And this is how I feel right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't throw a piece of chicken on Shaq's desk. That's when she becomes loud. I've tried it. Just don't do it. It's not good for your health.
Who throws chicken on people's desk?
I did.
Oh.
I don't eat meat.
Oh, okay. So that was very aggressive.
No, I was like, wake up. And she was like, ah! Let me ask you, Kate.
He's so weird.
I've never done that.
What? Have you ever been in? I mean, listen, I've code switched a whole lot. I've never been tone police. Have you ever been tone police though?
No, because I feel like I come with a strong tone and I don't want anybody being the tone police to me. So I try not to be the tone police because I know me. I'm very passionate and it comes off sometimes like I'm yelling and I'm like, I'm not yelling and I'm not upset. We just talk really loud sometimes. That's all. So no, I'm not the tone police.
I'm glad because
I let people be who they are because I want to be who I am. But I don't think that that's always.
But have you
well
ever
received.
been tone police? Has anybody ever talked to you off to the side and been like, you could have said that a little?
Oh yeah, yeah. But I'm like, I didn't mean it like that. It's how you took it.
See, I like that, Shaq. She just says straight up. Shaq is just nice because Shaq will be like, and then she'd be behind the scenes. She'd be like,
and if I'm wrong, I'm also big on like maybe I could have said it a better way. But typically, you have to really get me to a place where I need to be tone policed.
Why you say it like that? Say it with your chest. Listen, I did not like the way that you spelt my name on the presentation.
It depends on the circumstance. But, and I also believe that there's a balance.
Yeah.
There's definitely a balance, right? Like you have to know who your audience is, how they're going to take it, right? So I'm getting better at having that kind of discernment because it can't be the same temperature for everybody.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, especially when it comes to like culture and just paying attention to who's in the room and the diversity in the room and just kind of adapting.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I'll be truth be told. So I'm biracial. I'm Black and my mother's Irish, and we didn't grow up with color per se, but obviously I was raised with more of my Black culture, but I think the benefit to that is culturally, like I get it, right? Like I get my Black experience because I'm having that. Like I'm not treated as like a white woman. I don't have white privilege. You know what I'm saying? But I also understand the dynamic between Blacks and whites and how that kind of fuses together. So that's it turned out to be a blessing for me because I can kind of look at things in both lenses and both perspectives and like kind of see. And I think a lot of that training even came from when I was younger. I had a grandfather, God rest his soul, who was very, very racist, to the point where he never acknowledged my sister and I because we were Black. As a matter of fact, like my grandmother had a dog with the dog's name was the N-word. It was a very racist environment. And my mother was very protective in that she never brought us around that. But like as a kid, I still knew what was going on, and to see my grandfather for like the first time and know that he was like, where Dre's standing and like not acknowledging me because I'm Black. It was just as an 8-year-old, you're like, that's really something else, right? So that was like my first experience with racism, right? And so I think what that taught me is like how to have more emotional intelligence when it comes to certain situations and how to adapt and like how to kind of navigate and know what is a hurtful situation and what's really racism and what's really not, and like just being able to decipher the two. But sometimes those hurtful experiences allow you to develop a higher emotional intelligence when it comes to certain situations.
See, I'm a piggyback off of that because in my own personal experience, I'm biracial too. At least that's what my mama says. I'm one of those, mama, shout out Lisa Williams. But Lisa Williams, back in the day, mom's got down. Roseland Ballroom. Shout out Roseland Ballroom. That's why I was born.
Literally, like in the ballroom?
No,
or
because
just conceived?
Because she found Mr. Yeah. Okay. But my whole thing with listen, I'm gonna let it all hang out like Little Richard says. Okay. But my thing with my mother was growing up. Oh, you're gonna speak English. But you say I'm also Hispanic. Well, you ain't gonna speak that stuff in here. You gonna speak English. I'm like, but that's a part of who I am. And I really, as I got older, I try to unpack it.
Yeah.
And my mother, worked at a place called Wertheimer's, and it was on 181st in Washington Heights. So you have an African-American woman who has to travel all the way from Harlem to work in Washington Heights two total culture clashes, and she didn't speak Spanish.
Right.
How do you work in a place where 90% of the workers and the customers speak Spanish? You know? And what was the response back in the day? English. Come on now. So that was like, okay, here I am, half black and Puerto Rican. I can't even like get that support to, you need to learn Spanish. I got the support. You gonna learn English and master that.
And it's almost a sense of like denying yourself, right?
Yeah.
And when I think of it and I look back, like even on our childhood experiences, like that is, sometimes it could be the crash course in diversity and inclusion, because you're like, wow, this is not right. And that shouldn't be happening, right? And you carry some of that into the workplace. I know for me, like even coming into corporate America, where it's, primarily, ran by, white men, and having those experiences that would bring me back to those states with my grandfather, where you would have that sense of denial or rejection, and like equating it back to that, even though necessarily it might be not tied to it in any way, shape, or form. Those experiences really shape your perception of yourself and like how you function in society. So it's more influential than we like want to give conversation to or give credit for.
Yeah, most definitely. And the further I more unpacked her story into learning more about myself was she didn't want to suppress being black. She was just, and my mom is still like this to this day. She's like, no, I'm going to celebrate my blackness wherever I go, and I ain't going to conform to you, going to conform to me. And I'm just like, Mama, no, you got to celebrate everybody.
Everybody.
I love
Yeah.
everybody. And she's like, well, no, if the potato salad ain't there and the fried chicken ain't there, I ain't going. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I love you. Shaq, I'm sorry. I'm just saying everything.
Why you putting your mother on the spot?
Yo,
like
I
that?
love my mama. Yo, shout out to Mama Williams. Mama Williams gave birth to a unicorn. Look at the shirt I'm wearing. People
Yeah,
can't see it.
I
It's
see
very
it.
colorful.
It's a lot.
It's a nice shirt.
Thank you. Robert
Yes.
Graham, what's up? Go ahead, Shaq. I ain't give you no time to say nothing.
It's okay.
My
it's
show.
So let's tie back into this platform. What are the goals moving forward? Like we're going into 2024. You have all these wonderful episodes. You've got to interview Charlemagne, which, how was that?
Go ahead, Shaq. I'm gonna let you stick up for yourself before I tell on you.
Go ahead, Greg. So you just love putting me on the spot, but it was a great experience. We talked to him about DEI. We talked about mental health. The whole thing was a really good experience. Greg flourished in that space.
You flourished too.
He flourished really well in that space. Again, I'm more reserved, so it was a lot for me.
He's a big interview, but he's really good at making the interviewer feel very comfortable.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, now I'm going to talk Shaq stuff because she ain't talking her stuff. Listen, Shaq, I flourish in the space because I live in this space. I live for this stuff. I'm here with Kenya. We doing it big. But anyway, Shaq actually really unearthed some gems, especially talking to Angela Rye, talking to somebody about how do you create allies in social justice, because social justice creates social equity. So that's one of the reasons why we also do this show. It's all about building equity. It's all about giving people not necessarily just the tools and the resources, but giving them a voice, because you have people that are home, you go to work, you tired, you got some children running around, you got your parents in your ear, and you've got all this bombardment, all this stimulation. And then how do you unpack that? And then you take it with you to work the next day. So that's why we do what we do, and that's why we have this platform.
Yeah, I think, and we're working towards, as he mentioned, uplifting, creating visibility for folks that are passionate about DEI. And also a lot of the people that work at our agency experience a lot of burnout. So they don't have time to kind of go to our events at work and stuff. So we have something for them to take home with them to listen to and learn more about DEI. Like you mentioned, it's training to go.
Right. So you set the bar really high.
I mean, listen,
right? Which is amazing.
It's if the bar ain't up there, how you gonna know where to
Yeah.
go?
This is
So
true.
I'm not saying that this should be done with every city agency, but I'm saying New York, we doing
It's
it
a great
right.
model.
It's something.
Yeah, it's a great model.
It's something. And my whole thing with you and talking with you, Kenya, I really wanted to gain more or less your perspective because not only are you biracial, but you're a mother.
Yeah.
I got to shout out, if you working and you got babies and you are in your career and you in your bag, I'm celebrating you.
Well, thank you for that. I
Because-
appreciate that. My babies are grown now, which is a little bit of a different experience because I'm like, God, I have like grown humans. But
So I wanted to know from like your perspective, like what is needed more to create equity? You know, where are city agencies, governments, where are they, you know, in there, but where do they need to go to put those
Access.
resources? Go ahead.
it's access and, you know, obviously resources. But I, you know, remember being a young mother who, you know, I was down to my last. I remember when I went to go apply for SNAP and food stamps and WIC and all of that, like what that experience was like and how taxing it was and how I was, you know, like I only needed food, right? I had a job. I was making minimum wage. I'm like, I just need food. You know, my baby gets WIC. Like I need food. And it was almost like I felt as though the agency could have better equipped me to make me feel good about working, like I was working towards a better life, where I felt like I was almost put into a situation where there was a sense of codependency that was being created. And I was a little like, I just want food so we can eat, but I want to continue to work and I want to continue to, you know, grow and make more money. And it was almost like I was put in a position to choose because like income wise, I was kind of like right on the cusp. And it was like, well, if you don't work, you're going to be better off over here. Because then, you know, but then I was like, but I want to work. I want to have a sense of accomplishment. Like this is supposed to be a stepping stone for me to get, you know, out of the situation. So, you know, this was a long time ago and I don't know how things have shifted and changed. But I think for me, if I would have had the experience, especially as a young Black mother going in there and saying like, I only really need help with this. And they were like, we're going to help you, but then we're going to help you with X, Y, and Z in terms of like getting you resources. How can we help you with your education? How can we help you with access? Like I felt like I didn't have a conversation with anybody beyond, you know, here's an expedited food stamp voucher and, you know, we're going to send you on your way. So I think those kind of conversations would have helped, you know, move me in the right direction. I mean, I always consider myself to be pretty self-motivated, but I know a lot of women, especially when I was living in the projects, who were on their 5th and 6th kid, who were my age, no one was talking to them like that. No one was giving them hope. They were, you know, thinking that this is the way, this is the model. So I would like to see city agencies, if they're not already, create a model, especially for young women of color, that creates sustainability outside of once you get past the system and using those resources. Like what's after this? You know, not just focusing on the now.
I love that.
It's honest.
Yeah, it
you
is.
know?
It's very honest. Can you, I know you have a podcast, Eternal. Greg mentioned it. Can you tell the folks of the city about it so that they can tune in and listen?
Sure. So Meternal is on iHeartRadio. If you go to meternal.info, it's not just I'm not a podcast. We built a whole platform. Remember, I was big on the access piece. So for us, we wanted to put information up there, resources. We actually partnered with March of Dimes to give us peer review research. They come on as experts. They send us experts to the podcast. So when you go there and you're a young mother of color or a mother of color in general, we want to make sure that you feel super served. So we have the podcast, which tells you the stories and all the things behind it. But then there's all this other information that's up there for people to access. So that was big. We wanted to solve that.
So let me ask you, I know, Shaq, I want to interject because I'm going to forget this. What do the listeners get from listening to these stories? Because I think there's so much more. And I had to ask you that because I can just envision Shaq and myself, we're just listening to it. What are we supposed to get out of that?
Hope, inspiration, real stories that are good, bad, and indifferent, but it shows you that there is a possibility for a better positive outcome. And data, like data and knowing where we are is going to help us understand what we have to push forward in terms of like the change and the shift that needs to happen. But if you don't know the numbers and you don't know the stories and you don't know how mothers of color are affected, there's no bar. There's nothing to work towards if we don't know where we're at.
And I think it's for everybody, too. I'm not a mother.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I listened to it. I enjoyed it. I'm going to share it with folks that are mothers. And for that, I had a question about a lot of my friends. Most of my friends are moms. And, some of them feel stuck in their careers. And you gave this amazing journey where you were resilient. So what would you tell the mothers out there that just feel stuck in their careers and they're dedicated to being moms but can't navigate and move up within their career because they're so dedicated to being a mom, but they feel kind of upset about not moving up throughout their careers?
Be patient and prioritize your family. And I think that was the one thing that worked well for me. Like when my kids were little, I knew where I needed to be in this phase of the business, right? I couldn't necessarily be doing all the things I'm doing right now because my kids were little and they needed me to be there. But I think my commitment to my family, even my commitment to my marriage. I mean, we went through a very like trying time where we were almost like divorced, right? So I had that, and God used that to show me that I needed to kind of take a step back and say, your family's your priority. You might need to shift some things around in order like to make this work. And it can't always be about your career and how you're pushing forward. You made these choices to bring these human beings into the world. You made the choice to make this commitment to this human being. So you need to prioritize that first. And once you can figure that out, then you can have the opportunity to speak into other people's lives. Because if you can't master your family and master your home, you have no business giving other people advice on anything. So it was like this real concrete structure as to how to get to the next point where you could speak authentically to people and like really be true to who you are.
Thank you. Greg, close out.
You
want to sit here and talk?
Forever, never, ever, ever, forever. So let me ask you, Kenya, I mean, where do people go for their own well-being in the mental space? Like, you're very big on fitness, and it just seems like spiritual, encompassing all, because I believe that we're trichotomy beings. Some people don't believe in that. That's fine. That's your prerogative. I believe we're trichotomy beings, body, mind, soul. Okay, that's me. But I'm respectful for everybody's belief. I mean, how do people nurture all three, do you feel? What is an effective method for that? What are your tips? How do you live your life to keep your sanity?
For me, God is like the center of everything for me. And I know that sounds like so cliche. And I was like, oh, that's such a corny answer. But honestly, there was a point in time where I didn't really have a lot of faith and I questioned a lot of things when it came to God. And I believe now that, he's a creator and he creates us in perfection, like even with our flaws and our shortcomings. And we are to be a reflection of that, right? Of the creator, right? Like if God is good and God is love and he loves us regardless of where we're at, like we should treat ourselves accordingly, and sometimes we're really hard on ourselves. So, I'm not like a Bible thumper or like a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I understand like that God loves me. I know where I stand. And I know what God says about me. And for me, that's the word of God. I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And that has, let me tell you something, changed the game for me. I remember being a street kid, running the streets, not doing the right things and making all the wrong choices. And God was always there every step of the way. And I believe that he uses what seems insignificant to the world to confound the wise. And I'm definitely one of those people that is imperfect, that he has said, okay, I can use you because you're going to keep it real and you're not going to give these, people this false narrative that they have to have it all together. So that's my advice. That's what's worked for me. It's gotten me to this point, and I'm happy about this journey and where God has brought me to. I'm proud of that. I couldn't have gotten here on my own. I did not have my stuff together. So,
and the thing is, like I said, I like to ask everybody about themselves.
Mhm.
Some people not spiritual minded, some people are.
Mm-hmm.
We're respectful of everybody's beliefs
Mhm.
and non-beliefs, and whatever you feel is your prerogative.
Mhm.
I always like to ask people where they feel they're going, what works for them. I
Mhm.
mean, I've heard everything from sound baths to martial arts. I mean, Shaq, we have a great show going on. I want to meet somebody that's into hiking.
Hiking is good.
Yeah.
I
it
mean, I'm
is.
afraid of falling off a cliff, but
But how you gonna be hiking and you afraid of falling off a cliff?
I
you know,
hike.
hiking
It's
is
good.
therapeutic.
Mhm.
And here's the thing: I think it's all encompassing, right? I think it's faith is multifaceted in that you need to know what the Creator says about you, because otherwise you're gonna have this maybe distorted narrative about yourself. And honestly, I'm a very results driven, and I will only give advice and substance to what I know and believe works. So there's that.
Now we're gonna let you drive us home for yours.
Okay.
Because I'm ready.
Well, I appreciate this conversation. I never get to talk. Like, I'm always interviewing people about what they have going on. So it's nice to be on the other side of the microphone and like be able to share my story and be real. And like, you have made this so comfortable for me where I could be myself.
I did good, right?
You did great.
Wait, I did good. I ain't even gonna say Shaq did
No,
good.
you
No,
did.
I'm
Oh my
taking
God, it was
taking
a
all the
team-
credit.
It was a team
I'm taking
effort.
all of it.
You both have a very great dynamic that complements one another. So I really
you.
appreciate this like so much.
Thank you. You made this very comfortable for me
Aw.
too. I'm always nervous doing stuff like this.
Oh my
I
God, you're
appreciate
good.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nah, I told her after this I was gonna get her a vegan banana bread loaf, and she was like, "You
Oh,
trying
that
to make me
sounds good.
fat, Greg?"
That
I
sounds
was
good.
like, "Fine."
Where y'all getting that from?
I don't know. He
Oh.
knows places.
I just
Okay.
know places. I'm the
I'm
connoisseur.
not going.
Got it.
Listen, if you
I'm
want
going
Greg to
home.
do something, just go and get Greg some food. I am there for it.
Yeah.
I take.
He brought me vegan cotton candy. I didn't know it was
Are you
weird.
vegan?
Yeah.
No,
I
she's
am.
vegan.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
vegan.
yeah.
Okay.
See,
But
that's
you
how
know where
much-
all the things are. I feel
know.
like. Yeah.
Listen, that's how much I want to celebrate my coworker.
See, you got a good coworker.
For real.
My coworkers don't
says-
bring me
He
anything.
says crazy things to me. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After I say that cotton candy,
Yeah.
work
So-
productivity is going to go up.
You guys are
Yeah.
funny. You're a good team. Where can
Thank
people
you.
listen to your podcast?
Oh, we gonna shout it out, Shaq. www.nyc.gov/DSS. That's an agency website. I gotta say that because that's where we work. And honestly,
Shout out to them.
Yeah, if you live and work in New York, that's where you need to go to know everything that is happening with trying to reinforce your family, trying to make your life better, and how we take care of our New
Mhm.
Yorkers. But selfless lane promotion. Wait, selfless, shameless promotion. You let me boggle my words and didn't even need to say nothing, Shaq. Got me over here just saying things. But if you just go onto your search device, everybody just do it with me now. Take out your search device. It's okay. We're going to do this together. You're going to simply put in 3 words. That is THE, GRIEA, GRIEA Project. The GRIEA Project. It comes up. It's on Spotify, Acast. We're going to talk to Kenya because she got to know somebody around here at iHeart. We're going to get something up on here. And yes, that is where people can listen to it. Just Google, Yahoo, Bing. Is Black Planet still a thing? I mean, just find anything that you search on. You know, Microsoft, I don't know.
It's there.
It's there. The GRIEA Project. It pops right up. You'll see this beautiful purple and blue page. And just listen to this girl from Queens rag on this dude from Harlem. And we tell people more about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And yeah, we're just loving it. We're just getting started. Shaq says, I want to get off this train. I'm like, no time soon.
It's a good train.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for this. I
See?
appreciate it. I feel very included.
Thank you. Choo
Yeah.
choo.
Well, awesome. Thank you for this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. And hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right? Look, see, she's inviting us back, Shaq.
See?
I'm coming without you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. No, I love it.
All right.